The Victorian era in England can be said as a golden age. From 1837 to 1901, Britain was prosperous and peaceful during this period. Of course, the working class was still very poor and oppressed. However, at that time, middle-class families, the bourgeoisies, paid more attention to the concept of home and quality of life than ever before. But the seemingly warm home was actually full of crises. Hello guys, this is Professor Ottercat here. Today I'll talk to you about the different ways to die at home in the Victorian England. As soon as you enter the house, it's basically the first step towards death. For people at that time, one of the ways to reflect the high quality of life was to decorate the home in a luxurious and tasteful way, among which people pay most attention to the decoration of the walls. Unlike the minimalist and Nordic styles that are popular now, they all like solid colour walls. Wallpapers were very popular in Victorian England. The more complex the pattern and the more brighter the colours, the better it is. Among them, a green called Sheely's green was particularly popular. It's not only very bright in colour but also has high durability, so it is widely used to make wallpapers, paints, clothing dyes and so on. However, the arsenic in the copper hydrogen arsenite, the chemical composition of Sheely's green, is not only toxic but also carcinogenic. At that time, people only cared about buying good-looking wallpapers for their homes. How could they really understand the chemicals behind? Many people who had green wallpapers or green carpets in their homes gradually found out that their physical condition was turning bad. Some people felt headaches, dizziness, and wanted to vomit. People who lived in such a home for a long time would have thickened skin, diarrhea, cardiovascular disease, even cancer. The newspapers at the time were full of bizarre deaths at home, including a 6-month-old baby who died after accidentally chewing the green wallpaper. Well, there are two main reasons for the poisoning. One is that the pigment on wallpaper will gradually peel off during years of use. The flaked dust in the air can be inhaled by people into the lungs and causing poisoning. Another theory is that the temperature in the house is relatively high, and with the high humidity in England, it is easy to breed mould. These moulds react with arsenic in the wallpaper to produce toxic gases. Although these statements are still somewhat controversial, it is a fact that wallpaper caused a large number of poisoning and deaths at that time. Later, manufacturers also began to introduce arsenic-free Sheely's green, which was then replaced by less toxic cobalt green. When it comes to poisoning, we have to mention about people's daily diet at that time. Between 1831 and 1901, the population of England skyrocketed from 13.9 million to 32.5 million. Therefore, ordinary private bakeries can no longer meet people's needs. So bread entered the assembly line production mode, and the output increased, but problems also followed. In the past, when everyone made their own bread, the preparation of the ingredients to the baking of bread was basically done by the same person. If something goes wrong, it's easy to find the source. However, after changing the production modes, different people are responsible for bread milling, needling, and baking. If something goes wrong, it's difficult to find someone to reason with. For manufacturers, of course, they would prefer a higher profit. But how to increase the profit? Using adulteration. Manufacturers will mix expired flour, potato flour, deli flour, and alum, especially alum, in the production process. Not only can the bread made of cheap flour turn white and look more upscale, but it can also lock the moisture in the bread, making the bread feel heavier. Alum is irritating to the intestines, so long-term intake can corrode the intestines and even lead to death. It stands to reason that if you just add a little bit, it won't make people die immediately. But the manufacturers can't bear to add a little bit when grinding the dough, add a little bit when kneading the dough, and add a little bit when baking the bread. So many steps added up. That's a big dose. What's even more helpless is that the common people at that time couldn't tell the difference between adulterated bread and non-adulterated bread. In addition, the cost and price of adulterated bread were relatively low, and many people became victims of fake bread. So some people might ask, but that's the food, what about the drinks? Well, drinks, it's even more screwed up. Usually, milk should be thrown away when it has passed its expiry date. But in the Victorian era, it was commonplace for milk to go bad. So there was a commodity that was popular in the streets and the alleys at that time: borax. Just add some to the milk and the sourness of the milk is gone, disappeared. Such a miraculous effect can be said to make borax a god in the milk industry at that time. In fact, it is because alkaline borax can neutralize the sour milk, but borax can only neutralize the sour, but cannot kill the bacteria in it, which gives the bacteria in the milk more time to multiply, making it easier for people to suffer from diseases such as bovine tuberculosis, which is the cow version of tuberculosis. Although a small amount of borax intake can be metabolized immediately by our body, but excessive intake of borax can also cause poisoning. In severe cases, may cause death. It was even more harmful to children who had to drink milk every day at that time because adults would drink less. Well, it's not just bread, but other food falsification and the addition of toxic substances are also very common. For example, yellow mustard was dyed with the yellow lead chromate, and aforementioned arsenic-containing Sheely's green was also used as colouring in desserts. The drunk tea leaves were dried and dyed and then resold as commodities, and so on. So many examples. I'm not just gonna list it all out, but there's just so many food products at that time. Oh my god. Finally, let's talk about bathing in toilets. Many people in the Victorian era still believed that bathing was bad for your health. But with the invention of indoor plumbing, piped water was introduced into the home, and indoor sinks, bathtubs, and toilets gradually began to rise. In order to keep the water in the bathtub at a relatively high temperature so that they can have a warm bath, people invented a bathtub that seems outrageous today. Gas-heated tub. There is a gas pipe connected to the bottom of the bathtub, which is connected to the gas. And after the fire is lit, you're literally stewing yourself in an iron pot. The idea may have been good at that time, but the results were clearly disastrous. The newspaper at that time also had many reports of an entire skin being scalded off and even death from severe burns. At the same time, it was not safe to go to the washroom because the sewage system was imperfect at that time. Although people's excrement seemed to be flushed away, it actually gathered up in the sewer. Over time, these excrement will produce methane and even spread to the home, and it may cause explosion if it's lighted casually. Even if the methane is not ignited, too much methane gas will directly cause the toilet to explode. This shows how difficult it is to provide a safe and comfortable home for everyone with the development of our technology today. Although there's still no immediate solution to the problem of formaldehyde compared to our ancestors, but compared to them, we are still living under a great time. Of course, there were far more dangerous in the Victorian homes, just apart from these few little examples that I've mentioned. And I will do a whole series of different ways to die in the Victorian era in the future. Great, that's all for today. If you like my channel, please access the like button, follow my Instagram account, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. And I'll see you beautiful face next time. Bye!